Okay, so hello everyone. You're all very welcome to day 5 and our final day of PastureBase Week 2023, the ultimate PastureBase preparation for the 2023 grazing season. Once again, my name is Joseph Dunphy, and I'm delighted again for the final day to be joined by my Grass10 colleague John Douglas. And hope you're not sick of us. I'm sick of myself and John now at this stage. You've only one more hour to put up with us now, so it's not too bad. So for our last day on the pasture-based training today, we're going to be looking at I suppose the whole area of clover management and then nutrient management or nutrient recording, and where pasture-based we feel can help in that regard. Okay. So just again, once again, sorry, before we start, just to make you all aware of where the recordings are. For again, I could probably apologies now. Some of you probably have seen this a number of times, but just very, very quickly, the Teagasc home screen, go to crops, Grass10, and down on the side, left-hand side of the page, webinars, and all the recordings will be here. So we just have Monday and Tuesday up at the minute, but hopefully by Monday and by next Tuesday's newsletter, definitely all 5 recordings will be up there for that link, and the link will be in the newsletter. All right. Okay, and once again, for the 5th and last time, the Q&A box in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So again, Hugh, we've had huge interaction over the last few days. It's been brilliant. So don't be afraid to stick any questions in that you have for either myself or John today. All right. So we're going to quickly look for the start, as I suppose, why is clover incorporation is important, and how pasture-based can help in this regard. Okay, so that'll kind of lead us into it. Then we're just going to have a quick look at the desktop and have a quick look at maybe where we record the levels of clover that's on the farm, where we're going to record the reseeds and oversowing of clover, where those events can be oversowed. Then we're going to move over to the app and the desktop then and show you how to record chemical and organic fertilizers, organic manures for this year. And because myself and John will discuss, it's an area of huge importance, and until you know for a given year what chemical and slurry is being applied on, be it a milking platform or whatever it is, a grazing platform, we don't know where we can make improvements and make reductions in the long term. So getting a full year under your belt in terms of nutrient recording is very, very important. And then to I suppose to finish off today, we'll have a quick look at reviewing some of the reports on pasture-based. So John will take you through, when we have that suite of recording done, how can I then maybe make improvements? How can I then, identify to maybe take that 5 or 10% off in terms of nitrogen, or maybe, how can I see paddocks that maybe are receiving a high amount of nutrient but aren't giving me the tonnage back in terms of grass, and maybe identify them for receipt. Okay, so we'll get straight into it. And I suppose just a couple of you that maybe were on our webinar before Christmas will have seen this slide, but I think it's just important to mention it again. Some of LED's work there out of Moore Park, so a system stocked at 2.5 livestock units to the hectare, receiving 250 kilos of N. They were pretty much self-sufficient for grass production, okay, in well-managed grassland. Okay, so up to maybe last year, when 250 kilos of nitrogen could be going on per hectare, they're self-sufficient. Okay. When chemical N is reduced, obviously grass growth reduces. So, if we're at the same stocking rate, the self-sufficiency of the farm goes down, and then we end up purchasing in higher cost feed. Okay, so, and it's a good figure to have. For every 50 kilos of nitrogen that's reduced from 250 kilos, your stocking rate would have to reduce by 0.18, okay, for that system to remain self-sufficient. Okay, so if you were pushing that stocking rate over the last number of years, and now you're staring down the barrel of nitrogen reduction on your farm, and also fertilizer registers coming on board in the next few years, you're going to have to either reduce the stocking rate somewhat on a platform that's been pushed likely, or you're going to have to look at ways of trying to maximize the amount of grass and herbage that's being produced on that farm. Okay, so if we want to maintain that herbage production in an environment with reduced chemical in, there's three huge important areas, and look at, you're probably, you're sick of hearing about the soil fertility one, but like there's still huge improvements that need to be made, and PastureBase can kind of help in the management of that and the improvement of that. Optimizing the slurry nitrogen, so making better use of our slurry, getting our slurries out at the correct rates in the springtime, early in the year, that we're getting better bang for our buck. So we're not going with high applications, 3,000 or 4,000 gallons of slurry on grazing ground, targeting that 2,000, 2,500 gallons a spring in the right conditions, and to getting best bang for our buck. And then introduction of white clover, okay, because it has been proved at research evidence, numerous farmers doing a very good job now at producing good tonnage of grass on the farm with much reduced nitrogen. Okay, so moving on over to PastureBase.
Just while you're doing that, Joe, I'm going to launch a poll here. There's two questions in it, and one is just, are you recording fertilizer on PastureBase? And the other one is, are you recording slurry and or other organic fertilizer on PastureBase? So if you see the poll come up there on your screen, you can answer it for yourself. We just want to gauge, I suppose, who in the audience here is recording and who is not yet recording. Okay, so we'll give that a minute or so. We'll have a look at that. Maybe we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes and see where it is, Joe. All right.
Yeah, perfect. We'll just cover off the bit on the clover recording on the paddock list first.
Yeah.
So look at, just again, now we have these paddocks already put in, but it's just something to review. If you're coming in this year and you have your paddock set up the last number of years, and you have parts of the farm with clover on it, but they're not recorded on PastureBase, where to go is again down the left hand side of the screen, and you go to farm, okay, and in the paddocks. And again, that's also in the top right hand corner of your screen in this paddock subsection here. Okay, so into paddocks. Okay, so as you can see here, what we have done, these are the paddocks that we put in all the way back on Monday on day one of PastureBase week. Okay, and you see, as I was entering in the clover level there, I was just putting in a few samples where, say paddock 1 there had a low clover level, 2 medium, paddock 3 had none, paddock 4 high. Okay, so if you had set up a few years ago and you had nothing recorded there whatsoever, what you'd have to do there is, for your 5 or 25 paddocks, whatever it may be, just hit that edit button over here on the right. Okay, so in the edit, okay, so we can change the size of paddocks or whatever we want to do, maybe change names, walk order, but down here we see the level of clover. Okay, so none, low, which is 1 to 10%, medium is 11 to 20%, and high is 20 plus. Okay, and I suppose
it might be just important to highlight there on that is dry matter percentage of the sward. When we talk about percentage of clover in the sward, we're talking on a dry matter basis. So the way you'd probably gauge that is, especially if you go out, probably the best time to gauge it, like the guys on the Clover 150 trial that are working with Moore Park and Mike Egan and Caitlin, and that they usually score their paddocks. I think it's 3 times a year, like sort of March, maybe June or July, and then again later on in the year, maybe September, October. And they're scoring them 3 times a year. So I suppose for yourself, even if you went out around May time or something like that and scored them, you can score them now early and change them later on in the year if you want. It might be a way of tracking to see are they actually going up or down. But a dry matter basis is about half the visual. Okay, so if a paddock looks like visually that it has 20% clover in it, it's probably closer to 10% on dry matter. So it's just to bear that in mind when you're putting in your percentage there. It's not a visual thing; it's a dry matter thing.
Yeah, and that's perfect. And that's probably where, John, if sometimes people have a paddock that nearly looks like it's 100% clover, but it's only when you go and cut that paddock, say, and you have a quadrant and you have that paddock and you cut it along. There's a lot of grass at the bottom of that sward. That leaf of the clover is sheltering an awful lot of grass. So then you're probably, if it looks kind of say 80 or 90% of the sward, that's where you're back at that maybe 40% or something like that, like, you know. So 45%. So that's just something to be aware of. So really look at, we want to be up somewhere in around 20% or 20% plus to have to make a difference in terms of the nitrogen that's going to be applied on those paddocks. All right. So we can make a change. We can make changes to those paddocks if we want. So again, you can see there, I just have a number of paddocks just for today's example: low, medium, none, high. Low to mediums there. And you know, that's the example there. Okay, so again, there's going to be people on here who are completely new, who don't have any clover on their farms. It's not a huge, you know, not a huge point, but it's just to show where that clover can be recorded.
I suppose that's really helpful for when you're starting to record your fertilizer, that you know paddocks that are good that have high clover in them. It's just another reminder that, you know, make you at least ask the question: is this paddock getting a full rate of fertilizer this time, or should it get back? You know, should it be reduced to a half rate, or do I? If you're on a dairy situation, you might have parlor washings or something that could go out for a rotation instead.
Mm-hmm. And just for those even who are maybe, because there was a question, you know, yesterday, is, you know, what should my fertilizer application be on these? We've a slide coming up there towards the end, just on, you know, grass only, grass clover, and you know what the guidelines are in terms of N on those. So if people have any questions on that, there will be a slide on that towards the end. How do you want to go there on that poll, John, or we? You're mute,
Sorry,
John.
yeah. There's a good few people after answering there, Joe, and it's about 70-30. But 70% are not recording fertilizer or slurry. It's about the same percent actually. So those who are recording fertilizer are also recording slurry, it would seem. So yeah, that's about what did we say? 70%. So that's about 55 people in here today. Are not doing it yet. So it's good, because, you know, sometimes we feel we can be preaching to the converted. So it's good to see that there is scope here for a lot of people on the call here today to start to do this. And it's important to remember, like, this is for your own use. You know, I've heard a lot of farmers in the last year or so say, oh, I'm reducing fertilizer. But like at the starting point, they don't even know how much is going out. You know, they might have an overall figure for the farm, how much they bought, but they don't know maybe on a paddock level how much everything is getting. And, you know, realistically, if you want to get down to the details of it, I want to be able to reduce it by 10% and 20%, but still maintain pasture growth. Okay, so you can still feed your animals. You need to be at like a paddock level as to how much everything's getting and how much everything's growing, so you can tailor a plan for your own farm.
No, very, 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 very important. And again, I think, and I suppose, just John, just to remind everyone again, like, any of the, you know, any fertilizer that's recorded on here is for you and for your use only. This information never goes to anyone else. I know there is, you know, fertilizer registers and stuff like that being talked about, but you know, we can guarantee that this is individual information.
Yeah.
This information is going nowhere.
Nobody else has access to this information by yourself.
Yeah. So, you know, so don't be afraid in terms of, if you're, you know, recording them, you know, and want to make them start on recording, and maybe the recording is a little bit high on the milking platform. You know, it's your own information. It's nothing to be worried about. And again, I'd be much happier someone being 10 or 15 or 20 kilos over on the milking platform, and then making a conscious effort to reduce then next year, targeted reduction, and maybe not suffer at all in terms of grass growth. Okay, so, you know, that's just important thing to remember on this.
Yeah.
Just okay. So quickly moving to the reseed event. Okay, so again, just from recording and putting this information onto PastureBase. Okay, and again, it's just to have your own records. Okay, so if you like, obviously this is a demonstration account, so there's nothing in here already. Whereas if we were showing up the count, there'd probably be a number of reseeding events down in here along the way for the last number of years. So reseed events, add new event. Okay, And it actually is very, very simple and quite comprehensive here in this one screen. All right. So up here at the top, I can toggle between a full reseed and an oversow. Okay. So again, full reseed, paddock not performing. Want to get new varieties in and want to get clover into that paddock. We'll go for the full reseed button here. Oversow, maybe a paddock that has a bit of clover in, but it's not enough, and you want to improve that clover. Or maybe say a paddock that was reseeded a year or two ago. You don't want to go to the cost of a full reseed in it, but yet you want to, you feel like the bit of clover in that would really improve that sward as well. Okay, it has got all the right varieties. It's vigorous, but just it's grass only, and you want to improve it. So we go for the oversow. So we might start there with the oversow while we're there. So say for instance, it's that first paddock there, top field. We're trying to encourage people, if they're doing oversowing, get it done now in early April. So obviously I can't go to early April. I'm just going to use today's date. And again, over here on the oversow method, we have a numerous different, pretty much everything here. I'd say it'll be covered. Okay. So, broadcast there in terms of if it's which are, small fertilizer spreader or something like that. You have your Einbach, very common, more uni drills. If it might just be an oversow. Okay. In general, if you don't want to put anything, but just say for instance, it was an Einbach type machine. All right. And then again, we're just going to come down here, drop down menu and get the varieties, because again, it's nice to have the information on the varieties too. That's there. So we can have performance data. So just say on the clover, if it's clover only, I'm just going to go clover. And I go down, we're going to go down here. I'm just going to take Buddy for an example. Okay. And I can change this to kilos per acre. Okay, because I'm a kilos per acre man and a units per acre man. Some of you might be different, but then I'm going to say that it was oversown at 3 kilos of clover to the acre. Okay, and then I could hit save there. All right, so that's so there's that information is there. 7 kilos, just 7 kilos to the hectare. And just quickly again to show, we're going to add a reseed. Okay, so again, paddock 2, reseed date yesterday. And again, on the reseed one here, you have, it can be anything there from a disc and 1 pass, guttler, 1 pass, plow, till and sow, power harrow and 1 pass, seeding it in with the, I suppose, in around the slurry, putting slurry on top of it, maybe with an oversow and a direct stitch in. Okay, so say for instance we go do a couple of cuts of the disc and a 1 pass. All right, and then on the variety, so again, I'm just going to keep it very simple. We're going to go grass. So again, look at the little the leaflet that's on the bag of grass seed that you're buying. Hopefully they're all recommended varieties, but just from a simplicity point of view, I'm going to put in average choice here. Okay, at 6, and again, kilos per acre. I'm going to put average choice in at 6. I'm going to put Aston Energy in at 6, 6, 12, and I'm going with 2 kilos of a white clover, and my white clover here is Chieftain. Okay, and I'm going with 2 kilos to the acre white. So I'm going with in around a 14 kilo seed rate in that. Okay, so that's just an example. Same thing again, nice and simple. Hit save, and all that information is there. Okay. So, and it's good information to have, because there'll be paddocks people, there'll be people that have been reseeding and have all that information on PastureBase for the last 6-7 years, and there's just lists and lists of reseeds that's done here, and it's it's good to know, and we'll be showing the annual tonnage in a while. When you go into the annual tonnage, you'll be able to see say paddock 1, you'll say, okay, that field is still performing fairly well, right? It's done 6 or 7 years and there was such and such in it, such and such varieties in it. It's still performing very well for me. It's okay for another couple of years or whatever, so it's good to have all that information there. Okay, I'm just going to move over to the phone, John.
Yeah, perfect. Just while you're doing that, I might answer a question here. So there's a question in from Teddy Cullinan. He says, which oversowing system gives best results? And I suppose the oversowing system that gives best results is one that when you do the oversowing, there's moisture available for the seed to germinate, and that's why we would recommend oversowing probably in early April for most farms. Okay, because now for heavier farms or farms in a sort of a wetter climate might get away a bit later, all right. But especially on we'll say the east side of the country or the south of the country that can get dry, it needs that month or 6 weeks of having moisture in the ground. So, obviously that risk gets higher and higher of no moisture the later we leave it. And if we look at the autumn time, some people that have oversown the autumn time, one or two paddocks have worked, but I think a lot of them haven't because of, you don't know what way the back end is going to go. And if it's very cold, plants could germinate and might die off again and stuff like that, or might get crowded out. We know reseeding in August time can be, especially late August, can be dodgy because it means you mightn't get into it till next spring, and the grass has taken over, and the clovers at the bottom and maybe got smothered. So oversown, timing is key for oversowing, and also having that soil seed contact is very crucial for oversowing. So having the ground like ruffled up. So we would recommend, like, if you're oversowing a paddock this spring, graze it. Maybe if you're on a drier farm, try and get out and graze it in February, and then maybe try and get it grazed again last week of March or first week of April, and then do your oversown straight away on that. So the animals have sort of grazed it twice. They've ruffled up the ground a bit. They've opened it up, and then maybe be a little bit of watery slurry or something on it could help to get that soil seed contact. So leave it until May. If there's a lot of dung pads around, the sward's not that clean, and things are getting dry, I suppose that's not the best time to do it. Okay, best time is doing it when there's still moisture available. There's no big dung pads built up. It's a nice clean sward, and that's probably the best system. Okay, it doesn't really matter what machine you use as long as you get those two things, that you're getting soil seed contact that has moisture, and then you're grazing it well after that. So grazing it at low covers of about 1,000, which is roughly 2 fists of grass. That's what we're trying to go for about 3 rotations on that.
One thing just to add to that as well, like, just the importance of that soil seed contact. So, the likes of an Einbach or something, we want to make sure just there's a good scratch at the surface after it if you're oversowing. And just one thing,
swards, definitely you could probably want a machine that would allow you to do that, or on cheap swards or something like that.
Yeah. And just be careful with maybe some of the stitching machines that you're not I suppose stitching too deep. The grass can afford to be stitched in that little bit deeper, but clover, we kind of just pretty much want to leave it maybe in the top the last couple of centimeters of the sward. Okay, so just a thing to be aware of. Okay, so moving over here, and just before we go back to John, then John is going to bring us through the desktop of recording the fertilizer. But we're just going to go back to the phone here again, and maybe just have a quick look for 5 minutes at the why you would use, and why I have the phone here, as you can see in my hand here. So we're going to go back to it. So again, as I always said, get into the habit. The minute you come onto your phone on the app, synchronize button. Okay, so again, it's talking from, maybe it's bringing down, if you're dairying, it's bringing down milk data and stuff like that. It's bringing down graze dates. It's bringing down other things to the phone. Okay, so always synchronize, and then you can see the date then on the bottom button, 20th of January today at 1:24. Okay, so it's a bit like doing your grass cover. Why should you use the app? Because it's simpler. You can do it there and then when you're in the field. Okay, and it's the exact same thing on the fertilizer point of view. Okay, now I still would back it up. I say maybe have I think every farmer should have like maybe something like an A5 book, okay, or a diary, and that all that goes into that diary is fertilizer and slurry recordings for the year. Okay, and that's it. If you miss something on the app or something, it can, at least you have a bit of backup. But just to start off this process, put everything into a diary for 2023. Okay, and then you can put it across into PastureBase at the same time when you're doing it, but have it there written down as well. Okay, so on the fertilizer page, we click in. Okay, so just going to delete these here now for a second. So when you come in there, as you can see, I just have no fertilizer recorded there at all. Okay, so top left hand corner, add new. Okay, So first of all, today we're just going to put in a light bit of slurry there on a paddock, or we'll go 2 paddocks. All right. So say for instance, so you're met with all this information when you come in. So the first thing it's looking for is the paddocks, and I think it's important to you remember what we were talking about earlier about the clover. So once again, if you can't see this in terms of on your fertilizer, the bars, the different bars, the different colors for the clover, I suppose constituents that's in, or the percentage clover that's in, you just need to run back and update the PastureBase app, because there's been a number of updates over the last 3 or 4 months, and if you hadn't updated your PastureBase app since then, you won't be seeing these colors, okay, from the what different percentage clovers are in the field, okay. So it's just something to remember. So that the say paddock 3 there that's white, has no clover. Yellow, number 1, is low. The light green then, say 5, 6, 7, there's medium, and the dark green then is high levels of clover. Okay, so just for simplicity point of view, we're going to go paddock 1 and 2 for slurry. Okay, so I'm just going to click them there. Paddock 1 and 2 are getting slurry. Hit done. Today's date for an example. Okay, and again, pretty much like the with everything, I think by this stage every fertilizer and slurry that you could want is in this drop down section. I think because it has been over the last number of years, people have been saying there's something missing, but I think by now it's nearly there. Okay, so what I'm putting in there is I'm going to put in cattle slurry, and that's in the drop down menu. You can go to for summer, and you can go injection, or you can go trail and shoe or splash plate, and you can go dilute or go strong. So I'm going to go cattle slurry, spring, dribble bar, and dilute. Okay, so the amount type, again, as I said, we're going to go amount per acre on that. Okay, and I'm just going to put in there 2,000, and the unit is gallons. Okay, so 2,000 gallons per acre on the 20th to the 1st on those 2 paddocks, which is 5 hectares. Okay.
Yeah, it's just important to find out there, Joe. Some people might put out, the amount type. They might put total amount, and we'll say they might choose the amount per acre, but I mean they put in the total amount maybe spread, thinking that it's to cover all the paddocks or something like that. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is you look back on your fertilizer and you realize some paddocks are after getting like 20,000 gallons of slurry per acre. So just be careful the units that you put in there. Now there's different types, like there's a total amount per acre, amount per hectare, and all that. So just be very careful. I would advise people to pick one and just stick with it. Okay, I know probably our preferential might be total amount, just because especially for fertilizer, picking the total amount, it actually it calculates how much you're putting out per acre, because you put out that you're putting out, we'd say 2 tons on 6 paddocks or 8 paddocks, 10 paddocks, whatever it is, and it works it out for you. Whereas if you think you're putting out 23 units of per acre, you might actually be putting out 26. Just because that's what it's calculated from PastureBase, from the area of the paddock and the total amount you're putting out. It calculates it for you, so it does help you see if you're putting out a little bit too much if you go that way.
Yeah, and we just show that example there, John, because it is a good one to go, because as you said, farmers, the best will in the world, can think that, for that 1 paddock, I'm bang on the money, that I'm giving it, a half a bag, like, which will be the advice now for February for low to medium, for medium to high covers, would be to go with a half a bag. So say for instance, I can go, say the 20th to the 1st, that 1 paddock there, as you can see. So I've 1 paddock selected, which is the paddock there with no clover at all, paddock 3. 20 to the 1st, 2023, fertilizer of choice, protected urea. Okay. I'm then going to units of N per acre. Okay, so again, we'll show the difference there now in a second. So we're going to go units of N per acre, and I'm going to put in 23 there. All right. Okay, and I'm just going to bear with me now for a second. We're just going to go through this. Okay. So you can see here paddock 3. Okay, on the recording, what is recorded down here, I've put in 23 units per acre. Okay. Now the recording is done in kilos of product per hectare. Okay, which is on the bottom left-hand screen there, but also done in kilos of N per hectare, as in kilos of nitrogen. So if we want to get from units per acre to kilos per hectare, we just divide by 0.8. So if I have 23 units per acre and I want to get to kilos per hectare divided by 0.8, and that's giving me my 28 kilos. Okay. And on the other side of it, for people maybe using, we'll call it more advanced fertilizer, spreading machines maybe, or something like that, they might be running off maybe total kilos of product per hectare. Okay. And so in that regard, a half a bag of urea to the bag of urea is 46%. We're going to half a bag to the acre, half a 50 kilo bag. So we're going 25 kilos to the acre. And I'm going to multiply my 25 kilos by what the equivalent is to take me to a hectare, which is multiplied by 2.47. And that's giving me 61.7. Okay, so that's where it's coming up into there. So just to remember, some people might say, geez, I recorded in units per acre. Why is it giving me 28 in the bottom right-hand corner? So it's recording it in kilos of N per hectare. And I suppose we tend to talk in kilos of N and kilos of product from now on. As I said already, I'm a units man, but it's just to know we divide it by 0.8 to get to kilos of N per hectare from units of N per acre. Just to know if you know that one, you're okay. Don't get too I suppose obsessed with the kilos of product per hectare, kilos of product per hectare, unless that's the way you're working maybe with your fertilizer spreader. Okay. And maybe especially in that regard, John, maybe people who are coming in maybe, and there's with the likes of a Breedle spreader or something like that, they might be getting with a contractor, it could be giving you a printout in kilos per hectare. So, we can enter it in anyway. So just to show that other one is what John was talking about, right? If I want to go, we'll take paddocks 5, 6, and 7 there. Okay. So again, today's date, fertilizer, okay, and I'm going with protected urea, okay? So this is where I'm going to put in the total amount, okay? So what I've done here is I went out this morning, I put 2 bags urea into my spreader, okay? 2 375 kilo bags of urea into the spreader, okay? So I've put 750 kilos into the spreader, and I spread it over that 8.5 hectares. Now this isn't just going to work out perfectly, but you're going to get the drift. All right. So I put 750 kilos into that spreader, and I'm going to do those at that 8.5 hectares. Okay. So then, yeah, total amount.
I'd say if you picked one more paddock, Joe, it'd work out. Oh, yeah, it doesn't make a difference. Yes, it's grand.
Yeah. How does that work out? Yeah. So you'll see there, it's a little bit. It's a little bit strong. If I probably picked a 4th paddock there, that would have been down. So you can see that's probably going with 3/4 of a bag of urea to the acre. Okay, so again, it's strong for what we're talking about at this time of the year. But you'll get the thing, because oftentimes farmers will say, I did 4 paddocks there, I had 2 bags in, but I was putting out a half a bag. But really and truly, you weren't. You could have been up at 30 something units. So that's a good way, of kind of being a little bit more accurate on the spreading that you're doing. All right.
Yeah.
Say for instance, and the final one before we swap over to the desktop is just to show I suppose on the fertilizer, it's maybe this paddock with that one paddock there. Now we have a high level of clover in. Maybe instead of for a round or two during the summer, instead of going with fertilizer on that paddock, maybe it's a light bit of dairy washings you're going with. Excuse me. Yeah, going with some dairy washings on that paddock. So again, add new, and up, and just again we'll throw in today's date, and again this field with this paddock here, paddock 4 with the dark bar on it. Okay, so say this is the middle of summer. Okay, and we go down through all our different types of fertilizer, down to the bottom. And soil water.
The numbers are first, and then the letters come underneath the numbers. So
yeah. So again, we'll go the amount per acre in that example, and say for instance it was 2,000 gallons. watery slurry, just giving that bit of nutrient there to maybe some of those those clover paddocks if we want to take it out. So there, rather than going out with a half, with maybe a quarter of a bag of protected urea, there that field is getting 11 kilos just maybe with some soil water there. Okay, so it's maybe it's helping, and there's that's maybe where you can make that bit of reduction. Okay, so again,
just there's a question there, Joe, on the if one of those was wrong now, say you put it in wrong, could you delete that there?
Yeah, so I'll just take this last paddock, the one after putting in, paddock 4, and the delete button. Okay.
And I presume then, Joe, if you had already synced it, and then you realized after you made a mistake, you probably have to go back onto the desktop to delete it.
Correct. Yeah, no, it has to be edited back on. Once that information has gone up, any edits then after that has to be made on the desktop. Okay.
Perfect.
Last 2 points, again, very, very handy here. Out in the field, maybe I have 18,612 on the spreader, and I have enough to do 2 fields. Sorry, I have enough to do 1 field, and there's another field to be done after it. I need to go back for another bit of urea. Which field is, or something like that, or protected urea? Which field am I going to give the bag of 18,612 to? Okay, on the graze and shake. Have a quick look through the soil fertility report. If I have the soil samples up, John put these in yesterday as an example, or the previous day. So again, we know then that I have all the soil results there in that one-stop shop. Okay, it's just a question of clicking a button. I know what the indexes were for my January samples this year. It's all there in the soil fertility tab, right beside the add new button. Okay, and once again, very, 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 very simple, very, very practical. We can see, the farm average. So as you're coming through the year, you'll be able to see what paddocks have received throughout the year, both in terms of total kilos of N throughout the year, and then go down through the paddocks. And another handy one is always, you see the area, and beside the area is days since last application. So that's a good one there that it just jogs your memory of when fertilizer was last applied. Okay, and last thing, come back out, as we said already, open the app, synchronize, and before we close the app, synchronize. Okay, and we drive that fertilizer data back up to the server, and we close the app. Okay. Perfect stuff, John. So you can take over and move over to the desktop.
Yeah, so you see that screen all right, Joe? Perfect. Yeah, so if we're on the desktop, we want to go in along the menu here. We can see fertilizer and slurry. Okay, we can just go into add new here. So if you're more of, like Joe was saying, like if you're more in the habit of writing stuff down in like a notebook and you want to add it up onto the system later on, again, you can do the exact same. These boxes here are more or less identical to what Joe has selected on the app, just in a different format. So you just select your paddocks. We'll say 1, 3, and 5. Application date, we'll say we'll put down the 30th of January here. We're going out with some maybe protected urea. Go with total amount, we'll say is what do we say, maybe 700. What did you put down? 750 kilos there the last time, Joe. Kilograms, and it's for grass, and I'm going in total amount. So just don't get mixed up with these buttons again, because if I clicked units per acre there and it's it's units of N, you can see here what's coming up. Total amount of product per hectare, 2,000 kilos per hectare, and that will obviously show up on the system wrong. And then when you look back at the end of the year, which is where I'm going to show you now in a second, when you look back at the end of the year, you could see a paddock that's after receiving 3,000 kilos of nitrogen that year, and what's wrong. You've just hit the wrong button. So just always be sure, just to double check when you're adding this stuff in, that you're selecting the right ways of doing it. And like some people say to us, oh, it's very complicated, why is there so many different ways? And I come back to what Joe says, people are used to talking about fertilizer in different ways, and depending on maybe the experiences that they've had or the tools that they have available or the way to do it, it's all a bit different. So we're trying to cater for everyone. So you just know what you need to do, and you add that in. So again, I can just save here. Oh yeah, I can't forward date it, so we'll just leave it at yesterday's date and save. and then they should come up here. 1, 3, and 5 should appear there.
You're breaking the law at the minute, John. Spreading
Yeah,
fertilizer.
yeah. So they've come up there. That's the paddocks that are after coming up. So it's fairly simple. Again, look, the clover level is on the paddocks as well, on the paddocks that have been added in. So it's fairly straightforward. So there's one other thing here I wanted to show you is, well, there's an NUE calculator. We're not going into that today, but basically if you have the amount of nitrogen imports onto your farm, which is mainly fertilizer and meal and some animals bought in, or maybe some surplus, or maybe some silage or forage bought in on the farm, and then you take away all the product with nitrogen going out of it, which is like your meat or milk, livestock gone off the farm. You know, if you've sold silage or sold whatever off the farm, you basically take what's coming in and what's coming out, and what's left over then is your end surplus, and then like the percentage of nitrogen that leaves the farm is your percentage of nitrogen use efficiency. Okay, so that's sort of one, but we're not going into that today. It's getting a little bit high tech. We just want people to start recording. And once you do that, then it's very easy to do that more towards the end of the year to see where your NUE is on the farm. And look, in general, these things, if you're more efficient with nitrogen, you're more profitable on the farm. Okay, so just want to see, some people last couple of years are getting used to, or getting into the habit of testing their slurry. And testing slurry is not something that has to be done really every year if you're in the same system year on year, because you know the same group of cows or group of stock going into the same shed, getting fed something pretty similar, and you know, it's off paddocks that are, you know, similar soil fertility, getting similar fertilizer. So we recommend maybe testing every 2 to 3 years, testing your different tanks just to see. But you can then come up with your own NP and K in your slurry. So you could just put in here, yeah, it could be soiled water, it could be your main tank, or it could be weanlands, or whatever slurry name you want. Maybe it could be a lagoon or outdoor tank. You just put in the dry matter percentage. So when you get your test back, you'll have this information: your dry matter percentage, your percentage of N, and then the P and K and S in milligrams per kilo. You just put in that, and then you click the calculate button, and it will come up then in N, P, K, and S what's in your slurry. So therefore, when you save that, then when you save that, you can go in and if you're putting on slurry on your farm, you can choose your own slurry on the farm. Okay, and it'll come up on that list that appears for what products you want to use. It'll come up in that list. Okay, so that's one new feature. So on to that. After that, then I suppose, Joe, I'm just going to go into an account here that has been doing all this work just to show what people can expect when they have recorded for the year. I think that's important to show people, you know, if I do this for the year, what does it even mean? How can I look back, and how can I identify what's what on the farm? Okay, so bear with me a second. So here's a farm now that has that's 2023. Here's a farm here now that has their fertilizer spread. So let me just change the dates here. You just filter the dates, and we can see here, this is the paddock summary. This is the one I'm going into here, is paddock summary. There's farm summary and application summary as well. You can look at them in your own time, but this is the one I suppose we like to look at. We can see here again which paddocks have clover in them. So some paddocks have better clover than others, some have none in it, and we can see here that what each paddock has got in terms of fertilizer for the year. Okay, so we can see total N, total P, total K, total S, if there's lime applied. So that was one thing we probably didn't mention. You can also record lime on this. It's under the fertilizer applications. It's in that list. There's lime there, different types of lime. And this is showing the total N for each paddock here. Okay, so you have a good breakdown of what every paddock got. Okay, and I suppose the figure, there's two figures here. One figure is the bigger figure is the total for the paddock, and the figure in the brackets then is the fertilizer, so how much chemical it's got. Okay, so we can see here, I suppose there's different levels on paddocks, but we can see here a lot of the ones with, say, the non-clover paddocks, there a good few of them are in around 200 210 kilos maybe on average there. And if we look at some of the clover paddocks, some of them are still a little bit high on maybe on chemical, but again, these could be high percentages towards the end of the year, but maybe started off lower base. Again, a lot of these farms are just developing in their clover story, but there are some paddocks here with only 50 60 kilos of nitrogen fertilizer on them. So on average, they're probably, it's probably somewhere back down towards around 160, 170, something like that on the clover paddocks. And that's the stage we're trying to get to. That we are spreading less on clover paddocks. We're allowing the clover to kick in, to do its job, to start fixing nitrogen, and then we can benefit from that. Okay, and that's what we can see here on the paddock summary. Okay, so just going off that for a second, we said we'd go to the annual tonnage report, Joe, I think, wasn't it? Or we could go to the soil test report, either would show that, wouldn't it?
I just wanted just to show the paddock summary there as well, John, just in terms of the different applications. Would you just show that?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, you can go to your other farm, go to another farm there if you want to.
I'll go back to that page in a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant to click on that.
Because farmers do often ask that. Oh, I can see the farm summary, but how can I see what the paddock has got?
Yeah.
Each individual paddock has got.
So if we go back to 22 again. So say a paddock here, for instance, say one of your paddocks here, say this one, whatever, we say 265 or something like that. Say, geez, I don't think I spread that much on any of my paddocks. Well, what you could do then is just click into this show details button. So this little leaf here on this side, and it'll bring up the different applications. So there's a lot of slurry went out on this paddock at different times. It's a clover paddock, so it's probably watery slurry at times. And
I'd say what nearly happened there, John, is that should be soil water as opposed to the cattle slurry in that regard.
Exactly. So it's probably been over accounted for. It's probably been over accounted for on these paddocks. So it's important to use the right product when you're putting it in. And you can also check the dates. Like some of these maybe are getting, maybe some of this could be an error. Something went out on the 2nd of April, 22nd of April. That's not too bad. But there's 22nd of April. Then a week later, I got some slurry. Maybe that was a mistake just on this paddock. Okay, so that's what we would see across paddocks, across the farm, is that where if you think about it, if you had 20 paddocks and you're going along 8 applications on average for each paddock across the year, that's 160 entries. So you're bound to get one or two, just human error. So just make sure to check them and review them throughout the year. Okay, and this is a good way of looking, because click on that leaf and it'll show you then what's come up, and you can click on one if you wanted to edit it. If you wanted to edit it, you could change that and edit and save. All right.
And that's where it comes back to maybe having that, that A4 book with your A5 book, and nothing else goes into that, only your fertilizer and slurry applications for the year. So, the 1st of February, a contractor come in and spread 5 paddocks with the low emission slurry spread with the pipe system, and then maybe say 20th of February, I spread my first application, or 15th of February, I spread my first application of, slightly less than a half bag of protected urea on 4 or 5 paddocks. Put it into a book and then stick it into PastureBase, and you'll have all, you won't have any mistakes. And if there is any double entering or anything that you always have, you can always, look back at your book later on in the year. That's good to have.
Yeah. So if we look at then, sorry, I just shared the screen again. So if we look at, this is the annual tonnage report, so you can just click in here. This is the report section. You can see annual tonnage. Not sure if we've looked at this yet this week, but this is where, when you measure at the end of the year, this is where all your information is recorded. This is where we are entering the graze dates at the start of the year. This is where it's coming to show a picture on the farm. And, Joe was going through reseeding earlier on. Now, I think there was a mistake on a couple of paddocks here, maybe missed the recording, but either way, we'd say, if you're targeting paddocks for reseeding, you're basically looking for the ones maybe that aren't growing so well, that and also maybe have poorer quality, or maybe they have a weed problem or whatever it is for reseeding. You can use this information to identify which paddocks need reseeding. And also when you've recorded your fertilizer on the farm, it's nice to look at paddocks here that have, you can see, so say this on this farm, the average on the farm, it's coming up 12 and a half. It's probably closer to over 13 with there's probably a recording or something missing here in a couple of paddocks, but we say it's in around 13 ton, and it's getting about 155 kilos of chemical fertilizer, plus about 40 kilos, 44 kilos of organic. So that's an average across the farm, okay? And every farm is going to be different, but also every paddock on the farm is going to be different. Like no two paddocks here nearly have the same amount of fertilizer and the same amount of grass grown. And this is where within the farm gate, even without talking about clover on the farm, there's huge variation on what paddocks are getting. So some paddocks are getting like close to 250 kilos of chemical nitrogen, and then other paddocks are, and maybe those ones are growing with say 12 ton, and then there's other paddocks there growing maybe 15 tons, and they're only getting 200 kilos of nitrogen. So it comes back to basic things like Joe mentioned at the start, like soil fertility, right? Has it been reseeded lately? Is there compaction issues on the ground? Is it being managed the same as the rest of the farm? Start to ask, why is this one performing and why is this one not? Okay, and it might be coming up for reseeding in a while or something like that. So we can see some paddocks here would say that right now we can pick out one. So here's one would say in total, this paddock here, paddock 8 just for instance, it got a total of 268 kilos, and or maybe we should look more on the chemical side, but we'll say here, so here's got 225 kilos, and the two of these paddocks here, they grew about 12 and a half ton, okay, on 225 kilos. And then we can look up at, this I know is a clover paddock, but like here's a paddock that grew 15 tons and it's only got 50 kilos of chemical in the year. Now, I'm not saying every paddock has the potential to do that, but some paddocks do, and some of your paddocks on your farm have that potential, okay? And it's in those paddocks that have the potential that you're going to get the greatest benefit out of this, okay? So, keeping an eye on them and knowing what's going out and what is very important. So
just one thing there, John, if you just see there down the bottom page, paddock 25, 27, 26, you see, if we look at there, the red. So that's what has happened there, is that was a reseed. And if you can just click out there for a second.
The red was the oversown, I think, this year,
Yeah, the red was the oversow in 2022, but as you can see then above it, the Nashota then, or what 8 kilos in Nashota, that was a reseed in 2020. So that's where you had a recent reseed where there was varieties, there was clover varieties oversown into that sward, okay, last year. Yeah. So, and it grew 15.9 ton there, so it's
the way we've done this before, Joe, like we've often picked, the best 3 paddocks and what the best 3 paddocks have grown. And we'll say the best 3 paddocks have grown, we'll say 17 tons on your farm, okay, just the best 3, and maybe they've received on average 200 kilos of nitrogen. And then we look down at the bottom 3, the worst paddocks on the farm, and they've grown an average of maybe 12 ton, okay, or maybe even 11 ton, say 11 ton, and maybe they've received 230 kilos of nitrogen, okay, because we have a tendency, if something isn't going well, the old answer was, should we put a bit more fertilizer on it, and we'll keep it pushing along. But actually it's the wrong thing to do, because you're not getting the response from it. And this is all about like getting response from what you're putting out, so that it's being utilized by the grass and utilized by your farm and not going elsewhere, okay? Because it's a lose-lose situation if it's going elsewhere for you and also for the environment we're living in. So we want to make the most of it, all right? So if you've recorded fertilizer this year, so about a quarter of the people on the call or a third of the people on the call have recorded fertilizer, look down through this and see what you've grown, see how much fertilizer every paddock has got, and you will find paddocks there like we'll say paddock, which ones have I picked out? We'll say 9 and 9A, okay? Now I don't know when they were reseeded. 2020 they were reseeded. I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe they are clover paddocks that just haven't been, or maybe there was fertilizer reduced to try and encourage the clover or whatever it was. But like their paddocks are saying, well, maybe next year I should be targeting only to put 180 kilos on them, and like if you're growing the grass on the other paddocks, why can't they do it? And if they're not doing it, I would reduce it in line with what they are doing or what they are growing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, without even having talking about clover on your farm, that's where you could reduce your fertilizer a little bit, and not you won't impact grass growth, because remember, some of these paddocks, it's like, the last 20 kilos, 30 kilos isn't growing much more grass for you. Okay, but you're putting it out anyway because you're trying to get it to grow the grass, but just maybe the potential isn't there, and that's what recording fertilizer and recording your grass, measuring, that's what that highlights.
Perfect stuff.
So yeah, so are you happy enough with that then?
Yeah,
Joe?
that's perfect. I might just go back to the slides there just to finish up.
Yeah.
We're about 5 minutes left, and if you can see back.
So the question there, how do you calculate silage yield per acre? Pit silage situation. If you have a cut and weigh system, if you have your cut and weigh, have a quadrant. We've went into some fields and cut a silage crop, and did the exact same measurement as we would for getting the grazing yield. We got the silage yield, so that's one way of doing it. In a pit situation, I suppose you probably are able to calculate. Would you back calculate how many tons have come off, Joe, based on the size of the pit, or would you be putting down an estimate on it, based off the fresh weight that's coming out of the field? I suppose either.
Yeah, like it's you could probably, the handiest one is, say, if you had X amount of tons in a pit from first cut, and you roughly knew that, like, it is as an overall out of maybe 4 or 5 fields, you could go from off your total tonnage that's in the pit, settled tonnage in the pit, and then divide that over the amount of acres you've done or something like that.
Yeah.
The other place I think is very handy to do, excuse me, is to cut and weigh. If you can, it is.
Like, even if you don't have a cut and weigh, like literally make up, even with a little bit of light timber, like a little bit of 1x1, a 500 by 500 square, and get like a hand shears even, and cut it, and you'll weigh it, like a luggage scale or something could weigh it, and you calculate it that way if you want to do it something very cheap and cheerful.
Yeah. So this is just, I suppose we had a few questions on this in terms of nitrogen applications, and maybe, like, there obviously is, you'll put slurry into some of these situations as well, but it's just, I suppose, to look at maybe the new limits in terms of the 225 kilos of N per hectare, and how does that work out in a yearly application. Okay, and then maybe look at grass clover sward getting 150 kilos of N, okay, on average, and like that doesn't have to be exactly 150, like as you saw there, John. Every paddock is nearly different based on applications, but it's a guide. It's can I reduce that? To 150, and maybe I can reduce that a little bit more on paddock. Maybe it's a paddock with very good, extremely good soil fertility, and maybe. That's what we're talking about. Maybe if we just go through that clover 151 there for a second, maybe that soiled water can replace a couple of applications here over the summer and reduce that, the 7 units per acre, 9 kilos, because there's no doubt about it. That's very difficult to achieve. You're less than a quarter of a bag of protected urea to the acre. Okay, so. This is a handy one. We're not going to go through it that much in detail, but take a picture of it. And if you have, if you're wondering about, about what certain paddocks are going to get this year on your farm, on your milking platform, you're probably looking at, half a bag of urea, because it's, or protected urea. It is still important, that we do get early nitrogen and early slurry out during February in terms of kicking the farm off, okay, when ground conditions are good and soil temperatures start to increase, okay? So, they're at the 225, that it goes down through all the different rotations for the year, okay? The grass clover 150, what brings you down through, probably in or around a similar amount of fertilizer going out in that early part of the year. And then as the clover starting to take over in that paddock with maybe that 25% clover on it, we can drop off. There's an alternative strategy there, which is maybe skipping and going every second rotation. That's it. That seems to be working well down in Moorpark on a trial basis. And as I said, the other option would be to maybe go half and half, would be to go taking out some of these and going with maybe soiled water. Okay, on these are very, very light, very, very light slurry, very, very dilute. Okay, so again, something to and we're not going to get into the specifics of this today, but important thing to remember, if you're making a go at clover this year, get to a Teagasc clover event in the springtime, or a joint program, Teagasc, and one of your at a co-op or something like that, a joint program, because there's a number of events that ran last year around the country, and all this stuff will be gone to in detail at a later time. So I suppose finally we'll come to the end of our 5-day.
Maybe, Joe, before you just go through that, maybe there's just a couple of questions after coming in. We might answer them and then finish up on your call to action. Is that right?
Yep.
So there's one there from Barry, and he's wondering about some of the more high-tech plate meters, and are they good value, I suppose. So I think more or less talking about the grasshopper or Jane Quip and stuff like that. Look, it depends. I suppose it really depends what you mean by value, but the value from grass measuring is getting out, walking the farm, seeing what's on your paddocks, getting your eye trained into what good grass quality is, making sure the cows or cattle or sheep or whatever it is are grazing those covers, and that you're managing the supply on your farm. So any tool that does that first and foremost is good, and that can be cut and weigh, could be normal plate meter. If you have your eye trained in, some guys are eyeballing most of their paddocks, and they might have something as well as a support just to back that up. So there's other tools along that maybe that make that easier, like the grasshopper or like some of the Jane Quip equipment. Can that make that more automatic? And if that's what you like, if you find that's good value, well then and that's what you like, that's what I go for. But we're not saying that you need any of that stuff. Okay, so it's really a personal preference whether you want it or not. Like if you don't have any grass measuring equipment and you're thinking of getting some, and that's what you're thinking of, if you feel that you'd get more out of using that, it'll pay for itself anyway. No matter what you use, it'll pay for itself in grass measuring, because that grass utilization figure has such an impact on profit on the farm. It'll pay for itself. So it's not really a question of cost. It's more a question of getting out and walking the farm, and are you committed to doing that, which is what Joe is going to talk to you about there in a second.
And just to add to that, I think the bit of the research work that was done there in Moorpark, John, and I suppose it's no piece of technology is bulletproof, and I think I suppose the standard error is probably 20-something%. That all across the board, plate meters or grasshoppers or whatever, if you don't use them right, or even if you try to use them as best you can, there's still going to be errors. So as John said, it's still important to be able to yourself to walk your farm and try and distinguish as best as you can the difference between covers. And if that means going walking with a neighbour who for the last 4 or 5 years is doing a very good job on grass, he's on PastureBase, a lot of years, go walking with someone like that might be better than you wandering around your farm aimlessly and not having a clue what's going on, and and then getting disillusioned with it. Okay, yeah. So that could be
in that sense, Joe, like an hour or two spent, or even 5 or 6 hours spent with a neighbour over a month or a couple of months walking the farm would be a lot better value than probably anything else you could buy, because you're getting that experience. Like you're leaning on that experience.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect.
Another question there from John: how soon would you spread sulfur? Sulfur on drier soils probably a little bit earlier, but I suppose any applications from April to July is the recommended. Okay, maybe some drier farms, maybe even after Patrick's Day, you could start spreading some. But it's usually April to July is the main period. If you haven't spread much and you're going out in August or September, it's not really going to do a whole lot at that stage. It's cooked. The goose is cooked at that stage, I suppose. So it's getting it out nearly in every. Well, it depends on how much you're putting on, but it's nearly every application from April till July is what you need to get up to that 15-20 units. If you're spreading about 200-220 kilos of nitrogen in a year, that's the level of sort of sulfur you need.
Yeah, I think that's a handy one there. Just maybe in around 15 units or 15-20 units for a grazing paddock, and then maybe 10 to 15 units per cut. So I do always think of that 38 protected urea product plus 7, just for an example, especially for silage, very, very good, because you're getting that, you're getting that little touch of sulfur along with the protected urea all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, sorry, you can finish up with your calls.
Yeah, no, I suppose it's just look at to I suppose to conclude on the week, and I suppose just first to thank, we've had huge numbers on all week, and again, there's been huge amounts of interaction, huge amounts of emails coming in after it, again, looking for recordings and questions on it. So again, when it's great to see that level of interest and interaction, and I hope that as best as we could, we try to, what we want to do is we want to make it as simple as possible for you to do your recording on PastureBase, and then be able at the end of the year to have a quick look at your reports, be it on your own or maybe as part of a discussion group, and see and get areas on your farm or particular paddocks or things on the farm that you want to improve for the following year. And I suppose from today, we want, there's a call, there's always a call, we hope there's a call to action for following PastureBase week. And if, leaving today after PastureBase week, is there 3 things that I can do now? And I guarantee if you do all these 3 things, number one, it's going to be better for your back pocket first and foremost, which is incredibly important. But also, as I said, all these things are going to make a difference from an environmental point of view and the sustainability of your farm. So first thing to do, commit to following through on your grass measurements. Okay, get the help you need if you need it. Okay, as I said, join a grass group, which is going to make an awful difference. If you do need that help, or walk in your farm with a neighbor is going to make a help too. And aim to do the 30+ walks, and as we said, that was one of the targets from day 2. If you want to go back and have a look at we were talking about the time, the amount of covers that we want people to hit, but aim to do 30 this year. All right. Secondly, recording on the chemical N and slurry. Okay, and if we're coming down the line, we are going to be more hamstrung by the amount of chemical N that we apply. So what are we going to do? Are we going to bury our head in the sands and in a year's 2 time then panic when the farm isn't able to cope without a given level of fertilizer, or are we going to take it into our own hands? Spend this year recording what's going out on the farm, put it into a book, and then put it up on PastureBase. See what kilos of chemical N and slurry are going out on individual paddocks. Maybe you're going to get a shock. A lot of people get a shock. A lot of people will talk to myself and John, geez, I didn't realize that much amount was going on. But I guarantee you then they're watching the fertilizer spreader the following year. And I guarantee you that they don't, they're not near as wasteful with nitrogen. And I even think over the last year, with the price of nitrogen, along with to help the recording, they're 2 of them are going to work in tandem. Okay. And then I think the third point on it as well is have a clover incorporation plan for your farm. Okay. And that could be as simple as 1 paddock for this year, maybe doing a paddock reseeding, okay, or maybe over sowing a paddock that maybe has medium, or it could be something as maybe you tried a little bit over the last couple of years, and now this year you're ready to make a better bump at it, and you're going to go at between maybe 10 or 15% of the farm you're going to reseed this year. Maybe get a couple of paddocks done now in the springtime, all right, and you have them targeted because they're not performing for you, all right. So so at some stage, either make a start in 2023 or aim to make a right good dent into it, okay, to get clover on your farm in 2023. So John, I might leave the last comment to you if you have anything to add to that before we finish.
Yeah, so if you're serious about all that, what Joe's after going through there, and you also want to you want some help with that, okay? And like the quickest way to get anything done is to get help doing it, okay? From people who know what they're talking about. And I suppose in Grass10 we focus on grass. It's what we do. It's what we do and what we do well. We run grass groups for the last 4 years. We've worked with farmers in the field, doing practical training with them to get them to a level that they're growing lots of grass, they're growing lots of good quality grass, they're doing it from a nutrient efficient point of view, and then now they're looking at pushing that further with putting clover on the farm, and even pushing that further with reducing nitrogen use. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, I'd be definitely advising you to register your interest in a grazing course if you're not already in one. And you can do that through this page here. So this is on the Grass10 section. If you click on the crops, click on Grass10, it'll bring you to this page, and the second tab down is grazing courses. So enter your name there, and we'll get back to you probably in about a couple of weeks once this all dries up and we get back to into normal. We'll get on to you in about a couple of weeks time to see to talk to you about grazing courses in your area. So that's it, Joe.
Yeah. So that's brilliant. Look, we're just bang over the hour again. Sees John, our timekeeping has never been as good this week. Normally all our webinars go way over time. So this week we've kind of tried to stick to the hour where we could, because we know everybody is busy. So look once again, thanks a million for everyone that tuned in this week. Very interactive and huge engagement. And again, look at the Grass10 newsletter is out every Tuesday. Okay, some of you might be signed up, some of you maybe getting it from the PastureBase homepage there. Okay, we might be sending up a follow-up email for everybody that registered, and maybe just to get some feedback on what you thought of the week. And if people aren't registered for the Grass10 newsletter, there'll be a link there. Okay, so look thank you very much for attending, and I'm sure we'll see, and we wish you the best of luck with your grassland management and measurement in 2023. Thank you.
See ya. Bye bye.